Welcome again to this nice hot day, and as you notice, there's no food being served because it's a fast day, but around 9:12, I think, we'll be serving food, and you'll be able to take as much as you like for those people who are fasting. I really want to go further in our studies with Yaakov Avinu, but just to give an idea of the purpose and the reason that we're fasting today. They wrote it down on our glossary sheet. Today it's called Shiva Asa B'Tammuz. Shiva in Hebrew means 7. Asa means 10. Tammuz is the month, 17th day of the month of Tammuz. It's been a fast day for thousands of years. And there are 5 tragedies that happened on this day. First and foremost, we have number 2, Havka Ha'ir, the city of Jerusalem, the holy city of Yerushalayim, which was surrounded by the Jewish enemies. As a matter of fact, both temples were surrounded. In the 17th day of Tammuz is when the Romans broke down the wall. The question is whether both were the 17th day of Tammuz. There are different opinions whether both. Everybody says the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, both temples were destroyed. And the siege of Yerushalayim, the first siege from the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar, was for 3 years that they surrounded the city, sieged the city. They finally broke in on Tammuz, whether it's the 17th day of Tammuz or different days, difference of opinion. But certainly one of them was the 17th day, maybe both of them, was when the wall was finally broken down, and they were able to enter the city. And that was the beginning of the end. With 3 weeks later, they destroyed and burned the Beis HaMikdash, the Holy Temple. So, since this was the beginning of the end, we start the mourning period now. Like I mentioned last week, between Shiva B'Tammuz, the next 3 weeks, we have certain laws pertaining to mourning. We mourn over the destruction of the Holy Temple. We don't make any weddings these 3 weeks. People don't take haircuts. And the different laws pertain to the 3 weeks. It leads up to the 9 days, which are called 9 days before Tisha B'Av. The mourning period becomes even more intensified until we come to Tisha B'Av, which we fast again, but that fast starts from the night before, like Yom Kippur. Shiva B'Tammuz, we were able to eat last night. The fast started this morning. Tisha B'Av is a very strict fast that we start the night before, like Yom Kippur. So I just want to go briefly. There's a lot to talk about on these 5 things, but I'm just going to say briefly, that was the first and foremost tragedy that took place. Number 3, Batla HaTamid, that the sacrifice which was brought morning and evening in the Holy Temple, every day without fail, even on Shabbat, even on the holidays, there was a carbon tamid, the constant sacrifice, one in the morning, one at night. And since the siege was around the city, they could not bring any animals in. It came to a point there was no animals left, and they had to stop bringing the carbon tamid, which was a terrible, terrible tragedy that this service to Hashem went on for hundreds of years. It's a very important sacrifice they brought every day, but they had to stop. There was no animals left to bring. Number 4, the Torah was burned. It might have been Apostomus. It's a question who burned it. Apostomus was a Greek general who burned the Torah. Imagine what a tragic moment that was. Of course, it's in history, it's not the first time and was not the last time it happened. As a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, and the Erev Shabbos of Chukas is a time we remember the burning of the Torah in France, in Paris, of the Talmud. All the Talmuds were brought together by the Jew haters, and they burned it publicly in Paris in the 13th century. There's a lot to talk about these things, but just to bring, it was burned other times also, the Torah. We go through such tzoros, the Jewish people, all through all generations, but we, like I say over here, but we keep our spirit up. The fourth thing we have, that was number 4. Number 5, Ishtabru Haluchos, the 2 tablets that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai, which had the 10 Commandments inscribed in them. He broke them. If you know the story of the Egel, he went up to accept the tablets, the 2 tablets with the 10 Commandments, and came down and saw the Jewish people made the golden calf. So he took the luchos and broke the luchos, saying that you are not worthy of getting these holy luchos, which was a big tragedy. Someday we'll have to discuss the full scope of the tragedy that took place then. The luchos were very special. Of course, he had a luchos later, second luchos, but were not the same. First luchos came from heaven, and the second luchos came from the earth. A much big difference between the first luchos and second luchos. So that's a great tragedy. And the 5th thing that we remember on this day was that the Holy of Holies of the Holy Temple, where only people that are pure are allowed to enter, there was a statue of an idol that was put into the Beis HaMikdash. The question was the first Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash is not clear which one it was. But some say it was this Apostomus again, this Greek general who put the bust of himself as a idol to worship, which is like the worst sin Jewish people can do, to worship idols. But they wanted to defile the holiness of the temple. So as the Goyim many times do to us, they want to knock us down and break our spirit. And the holiest place in the world, the holiest place for the Jewish people, the holy temple, they bring in an idol, and we couldn't do anything about it. So these are 5 very upsetting, to put it mildly, happenings that took place on this day of Shivas B'Tammuz. So it's no wonder that it's become a fast day for all these thousands of years. We said special prayers, so people would go to the prayers in the morning in shul. We said special prayers and the special reading of the Torah pertaining to tragedies, and prayers that we're hoping that God will listen to and change the Jewish scene, bring us back to our holy land, and building up the holy temple again, where and when we know that will never be destroyed again, that we're promised by the prophets, once the 3rd temple will be built, that will never be destroyed. But in the meantime, we're still in Golus, we're still not in our homeland, and we have a lot to work on to perfect ourselves, to make ourselves worthy to be brought back to the Holy Land, to have the temple rebuilt again. But it's up to us. God's ready, willing, and able. He wants to build the Holy Temple, but we have to be worthy of it. We sitting here, and the Jews out of this country, over the world. We're one nation, and we're responsible for each other, and we have to work on ourselves and do what we can for others in order to bring the Jewish people back to the level that God wants us to be as His holy nation, as the chosen nation. We strayed, and we did not keep the laws of the Torah to the point which God wants us to, which He demands from us, and that's what happened. So we got to work on ourselves to bring ourselves back up to that point, to be worthy of the building of Beis HaMikdash again. Someday, Mirz Hashem, I'd like to discuss all these 5 things more in detail, but I just wanted to give an idea of what's going on about this fast day today. Getting back to our study of the Chumash, I entitled our shmooze tonight, Problems That Happened to the Jewish People pertaining to the 5 things I just mentioned, and problems pertaining to individuals, which has to do with what we're going to talk about tonight in the Chumash. A personal tragedy happening to Yaakov Avinu and his family. I'm quoting very much from the text of the Torah now. Put the highlights in our glossary sheet. This is number 7. Taitzei Dina bas Leah. Dina, the daughter of Leah, Asher Yolda LeYaakov, that she gave birth to Yaakov. The rest of nice hearts, as you remember, there were 11 sons that were born so far to Yaakov Avinu. There's one yet to be born, and one daughter that the Torah talks about, and her name was Dinah. So she was with them as they're on the journey on the way back to the Holy Land. They're on their way back. They finished with Esav, Baruch Hashem, with Lavan, Baruch Hashem. They finished with all these, the lions out of the lion's teeth we mentioned last week. They're on their way back, and they stopped in the city of Shechem. It was Erev Shabbos, like you mentioned. So they rested there for Shabbos. And Yaakov Avinu bought a piece of land, and he camped over there. So Dinah went to see the girls of the land. She wanted to see this culture, wanted to see what they're all about. So she went to visit a little bit with the daughters of the land. That was the first mistake that she made. She shouldn't have gone out. These people were not very fine, not very civilized, to say the least. So she shouldn't have gone outside in such an environment. Vayaras Shechem ben Chamor Achit vi Nasi Haaretz. This man Shechem, his name was Shechem. The city was called Shechem. The son of Chamor. Chamor means a donkey. His father's name was Chamor. Imagine that. The son of Chamor. He was a Chamor, and the father was a Chamor. They were both donkeys. I think in Israel today, if you want to insult somebody, call him a Chamor. Is that right, Israelis? Israelis, is that correct? You call him a Chamor if you don't like somebody. So this guy was a Chamor. Nasi Haaretz. He was the president, the leader of the land. This Chamor, and Shechem was his son, who was the prince. And he saw Dinah. He took her. He kidnapped her. He laid with her. And he pained her. He raped her, in other words. This Chamor, the son of the Chamor, this bum, Shechem, kidnapped her, raped her. The commentaries mention that if we look back and see the description of the patriarchs, the Torah talks about the good looks of Sorah, good looks of Rivka, good looks of Rachel. It doesn't mention good looks about Dinah. And they mention because her good looks didn't do any good. They were negative. They got into trouble. So a thing that gets you into trouble is nothing to talk about, nothing to brag about. The Torah doesn't mention she was a very good-looking woman. How old she was, not by maybe bas mitzvah, less than bas mitzvah. Of course, we have to understand in those times, it wasn't just a little girl. They were very mature for their age. Like they were like adults. Like we see what went on over here. They were not little kids, even though they were very young, but they weren't little kids. They were very mature, like adults, like we have today. Like mature adults, old adults, even though they're very young. The oldest one about 13, 14 years old, the boys. So what happened after that? If he would have let her go, that would have been a halbatzar, like they say. That would be bad enough, what he did. But the next step came, which made things even worse. His desire stuck, connected to Dinah. He loved her. Oh, that's really going to be a problem. She's in his house, and he decides this is for him. We have over here, and he spoke to her heart. Rashi points out, he said to her, he saw that she didn't want him. She was trying to get out of there. She couldn't stand his guts, but he didn't let her go. And he said to her, listen, your father came as a stranger to this city, and he had to buy a piece of land, 100 ksita, who knows how much money it was worth, 100 silver coins for that little piece of land. You marry me, and you'll have the whole city to you. Try to convince her and lure her into wanting to marry him with promising a lot of money, a lot of covet, a lot of fame and honor. He was the son of the head of the country. He was the prince, upcoming to take over for his father. So Shem said to Hamor's father, who was the head and the president of the country, of the city, go and take this girl from me. I want her to be my wife. You got to go and speak to the family and tell them, I want her. I want to marry her. He took her now, illegitimate marriage, well, being together. Now he wants to make it legitimate. And Yaakov heard the terrible news that he defiled his daughter Dinah. And the children were with the cattle in the field. They weren't around at that time. They were people who raised cattle, and they're out in the field taking care of the cattle. Yaakov was quiet, didn't say anything. He kept quiet till they came. Didn't want to start anything until he wanted to have a meeting with his sons. What they're going to do over here? What's the plan? Imagine that. How upset he was. This low-life bum goes and kidnaps his daughter, and he won't let her out, and he has all the power. So Hamor, Shechem came to Yaakov, Dabritai. They came with Shechem and Hamor, the son who did the terrible action with his father, knocked on the door of Yaakov. We got to talk to you. Children of Yaakov came from the field when they heard about this tragedy. They The men were upset and sad. They were livid. They were outraged. The 11 brothers, the little sister, they loved, they adored her. And this guy comes along. They were boiling. Israel. Number 13. He did disgusting action against this family of Yisrael. This is not the thing that should be done. Rashi says the non-Jews, after the flood, took upon themselves not to marry or have relations, men and women, they're not permitted. They took upon that reason why the flood came. It's one of the reasons, because of the immorality that was going on. And after the flood, they took upon themselves to be moral. And then they go with things like this. It was personally very upsetting to them. And between God and man, what are they doing over here? And nobody does anything about it. No people in the city, they keep quiet. So, big deal. That's how immoral they were. Didn't faze them. So, I'm going through the words, psukim, very simply. They say the story of what happened. Then I want to go back and go and explain in much more depth and detail what's happening over here. We'll see some things difficult to understand. The first thing to understand difficult is why was Yaakov punished with such a upsetting thing to happen to Yaakov? Old people, it should happen to him. Some kind of punishment for them. What did he do? Why was he punished like this? That's the first we have to understand. Amen. How much pain they're going through. So we'll go through it, and then we'll go back and explain different things by probably next week. But we'll just learn the simple story now, and then we'll go back to explain it next time. Yirtzeh Hashem. So Chamor comes with his son Shechem, and the brothers already came in, and they're having a meeting. Yaakov is there, the 11 brothers are there, Shechem is there, and Chamor is there. So Chamor talks on behalf of his son. My son Shechem got a very strong desire for your daughter. Please, I'm asking you, give her to him as a wife. And you'll benefit from it. And you should intermarry with us. We have on our sheet. Intermarry with us. We'll give our daughters to you to marry. You'll take our daughters to you to marry. You'll live in this land. The land's in front of you. You can sit here, stay here, do business here. It's a very good land. It's a very rich land. And you'll be a part of it. You'll live here. We'll become one nation. You'll give your daughter to us, and we'll intermarry with each other, our families, and everybody will be happy and live happily ever after. And then Shechem started talking. So far his father spoke on his behalf. And Shechem said to her father and to her brothers, whatever you want, I'll give. I want her so much, whatever you ask for. You ask me for a big dowry, all kinds of presents, whatever money you want, no object. Whatever you want, I'll give. Whatever you tell me. Just give me this woman, this girl, for my wife. That was the hatzah and the plan, proposition that they laid forth to Yaakov and his sons. Children of Yaakov answered him, Shechem and his father, b'mirmo, with a strategy, with a plan. Because he defiled his sister, they're not going to get away with it. So he said to them, we cannot give our sister to a person who's not circumcised. Cherpa hilonu. There's disgrace for us. We know that God made a covenant with Avraham Avinu, discussed at great length when we came to that portion, it was quite a while ago, that God made a covenant, a bris, with Avraham Avinu, that I will be your God for the future, close to you, you'll be close to me. And he made a covenant with them that every male must be circumcised. Something that was kept ever since. That was almost 4,000 years ago. God made that covenant with Avraham Avinu, that every male must be circumcised. That's one of the most important laws in the Torah. And you want us to give our sister to you, you uncircumcised? That's a disgrace for us. We call somebody who's not circumcised an oral. You talk to somebody who you want to put him down, you say you're an oral. You're uncircumcised. You don't have the bris, you don't have that covenant with God. So what are you asking? What are you talking about? That we should give our sister the impossible. But there is a way out. Im, you'll be like us. If you'll be like us, l'himor lochem kol zocher. Imagine such an outrageous problem sending back. Everybody in the city has to become circumcised. If everybody, you want us to be one nation and live together and marry each other, well, then you'll have to live up to our terms, to our culture, and this is to mean to us everything. If you'll go ahead and do so, then we agree. We'll give our daughters to you, and your daughters will take for us. We'll live together, we'll be one nation. If you won't listen to us, if you don't want to go along with this proposition that we're making to you, we'll take our daughter and we'll leave. They talk very strongly, as if take the daughter and they'll leave. Who said they're going to let him take her daughter? She was kidnapped in his house, but they still spoke with confidence, with strength. So, what would be a reaction of a normal person? Would say, what are you talking about? Everybody in the city to be circumcised. They didn't have any anesthesia in those times. There were older people, and it's a very painful operation. Circumcision, it's cutting off skin. It's a very painful thing. Today, people and men are circumcised. They have all kinds of injections that you don't feel anything. They didn't have, at that time, they have these injections. It's an operation. I once witnessed an odorous operation. There was about 50 stitches. I mean, it's a big, it's something to go through. So you think to them, I'm sorry, but this is not going to happen. Go to the whole city and tell everybody you have to be circumcised. Tell them you're crazy and we're not going to do it. But no, they accepted it. Their words were good in the eyes of Chamor and in the eyes of Shechem ben Chamor. It was a good idea, a good thing. Okay, fair enough. If that's what you want, that's what's going to do the trick. We're going to work on this. We have today that some people are not circumcised, and they're older, and they're just afraid to go ahead with it, even though you have injections and ways to do it without pain. But it's very, very important. Every Jewish person has to be circumcised. You shouldn't die before you're circumcised. All the stories of how Jews they put themselves in danger for circumcision. All in Russia, they had the law against circumcision. All people, I'm sure you had stories and stories how people put themselves in danger to have their children themselves circumcised. But we have a general rule, hava mekalkelas as ashura, it's called. Love or hate. Make sense into nonsense. Love can make a straight line into a crooked line, in other words. Hate can make a straight line to a crooked line. Doesn't make any sense. But love and hate can do things that people would not normal people do. Love and hate make things normal abnormal. So therefore, the Nar, this boy, Shechem, didn't delay because he loved Dinah. He would do anything for her. So they came and called a town meeting, Hamor and Shechem. They called everybody together and they spoke to them and told them what happened. These people are very fine people and they'll live with us together because they had a great reputation, don't forget. They were known to be a very outstanding people. The children of Yisrael, Yaakov Avinu, Avram Avinu, they had, fame was far and wide. It's a big honor for them. If they would come and live with these lowlifes, they would become part of them. They would bring up the whole standard of the reputation. And they'll live together with us, do business over here. There's plenty of business to be done here. They won't take anything away from us. We'll marry them, they'll marry us, we'll take their daughters, they'll take their daughters. It's going to be great. So, yeah, so what? Okay, let's go. But there's only one condition. There's only one thing they'll agree to live with us if everybody becomes circumcised. Bang. And then we'll take everything they have, we'll enjoy everything that they have. They're very rich, we'll be part of their richness, we'll do business with them. You got to do it. I don't know how many people there were as a city. I don't know how many big people in the city, but it was more than 10 people, that's for sure. It seems to be, there must be a few hundred people. So, they listened to them. Imagine that. So they all circumcised themselves. And we know, after circumcision, the third day afterwards, when first circumcised without any anesthesia or any type of medical help, the third day is the worst. By many operations, people have the third day is the worst. The third day came back. They were very full of pain, recuperating from the circumcision that they all made. The two sons of Yaakov, Shimon and Levi, the daughters of Dinah, came on the city with assurance, and they killed out all the men. Killed them out. They couldn't do much resistance. They were weak. They were sick from the circumcision. And Hamor and Shechem, they killed them also. Took a sword and killed them. And they went into the house and took Dinah from the house and they left. They robbed the city. They took everything. The wives and children they let alive. They adopted the children, took the wives. Wow. Started with Yaakov. So, what was Yaakov's reaction? From Yaakov was Shimon and Levi. Shimon and Levi, these were the main ones with the two sons. The second, number 2 son, number 3 son, Shimon and Levi. They're the main ones. They went and they did it on their own. Yaakov was angry. Achartem oisi, you made me very bad in the eyes of the people living in the land. I'm just a few people. And what are people going to say? What happened over here? They're going to all gather up and they're going to come against me to fight me and they kill me. We'll all be killed out. What did you do over here? He was upset. He was upset for many years afterwards. And could be never forgave them. We're not sure exactly, but it shows up later on. We'll see. What did you do? So they said, they answered him, we have a number of the last one. He's going to make our sister like a prostitute, this bum? And we let him get away with it? Oh no. He has to pay for what he did. That's the story. Now, the questions in the story that we have to bring up and hope to discuss next week. Number one, we mentioned at the beginning, what did Yaakov do to deserve such a punishment? It happened to his wonderful, modest, special daughter of Dinah. And the big question is, what did Shimon Levi do? Kill out the whole city? Because what they did to Dinah, that entitles you to go kill everybody like that? Okay, maybe you should hit him. Maybe you should, what are you killing? You can kill everybody out like that? Are you murderers? What kind of thing is that? Is that the right thing? For two Jewish boys, they go and kill out the whole city because of one story, they raped his sister, so therefore they kill everybody out? What were they thinking? These were great people, don't forget. These weren't just, teenagers of gangs, a gang outside with Gold Sugar. They were very disciplined people, very God-fearing people. And if they did this, there has to be a reason for it. It can't be just that got angry and what do you do and killed them out. They didn't act like that. There has to be a good reason. What was the reason? Number three, why was Yaakov upset? You were sitting there when they said to Shechem and to Hamor, he sat through the whole thing. He knew what's going on. So what's he getting so upset about? So he's angry. What did you do? What did you do? You didn't know about it? You heard us say it to them. There was a whole plan. They're playing together. No? And here, Yaakov's taking them to task and saying to them, you did a thing that's going to make all be destroyed. All the nations around, they hear such things what we did. They're going to come up, rise against us, and they'll be outraged what we did. They're going to fight us and kill us. Why are you saying that? We should have said in the beginning, why we should have, right away when they made this plan, you should have stop, we're not doing this. And now after the whole thing happens, now he comes and complains. Is that fair? If you didn't like it, so you should have said in the beginning, don't do it. So this is the outline of what happened, and it needs some very strong, deep, understandable explanation to know what exactly was going on over here. Something was not, there was no communication, some lack of communication over here somehow. It doesn't seem to be, but there has to be some lack of communication because otherwise Yaakov wouldn't have been so upset. On the other hand, he was part of it, he knew about it, they're all sitting together. The Torah said they were sitting together. Yaakov was there, the brothers came, Hamor and Shechem came together. They heard clearly what was being said. And then it seems that something went wrong someplace. Why is he angry at them? So this is something that next week we're going to go into depth to explain what transpired over it, to understand what everybody's thinking and what they were doing, and to show that what was done here was justified. It was not just murder without any reason. But right now we're ready for some questions, I think. In 10 minutes we got the food coming out, right? Okay.
Rabbi, according to Jewish law, what is the proper punishment or revenge for rape? Is there something? Obviously, this was before the Torah was given, right? But what in Yaakov's eyes was the proper way to approach this?
Well, Torah talks about rape explicitly, and the person gets lashes and has to pay a fine, and has to marry the girl if they want. If they want, he has to marry her, and he has to pay a fine and gets lashes.
But is that if the rapist is a Jew, or is that also
Jew,
if it's a non-Jew?
Well, a non-Jew would also be punished. But the main law is for a Jew against a Jew. In other words, he has to pay a fine. We'll see. It's a very strict fine, and he gets lashes, like you said. And if they want, then he's obligated to marry the woman that he raped, if the parents want, if the girl wants.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question. Rabbi Mintz spoke about the 5 events that happened, that occurred, that we mourn today. They want to know 4 of them seem to be punishments that occurred to the Jewish people, except one of them is Moshe breaking the luchos. Seems to be something that he did himself, not something that anybody else on the outside did to us. They want to understand why that's...
Not what?
It's not something that was done to us by other people. Moshe broke the luchos. That's something that he did willingly, knowingly, and as the leader of Klal Yisrael. It's different than the other.
Why is that a punishment? Why is it called a punishment, you mean?
Right, why is that called a punishment? Why do we mourn it if it's something that we did ourselves?
Uh-huh. Well, like I said before, there's a lot to talk about on these 5 things, especially about the breaking of the luchos. But Moshe Rabbeinu had a reason why he brought the luchos, which I don't want to go into right now, but he figured out that the Jews were not worthy of getting the luchos. They're not on the level. The luchos was a very holy thing, which brought God's Shekhinah close to the Jewish people through the luchos, and they were not worthy of it. And imagine Moshe Rabbeinu coming down, try to get a picture of it. He's coming down from heaven. After 40 days and 40 nights in heaven, he didn't eat, he didn't drink, fasted for 40 days. Coming down with the luchos from God, the luchos came from heaven. What was made out of? Some kind of spiritual stone. God himself wrote the luchos. All the words of the 10 Commandments written on the luchos, plus other things that were there. Coming down, and he takes upon himself the responsibility, smashing the luchos in front of everybody. God's luchos. Was that a good thing or not a good thing? Did they have the right to do it or not? And we're told at the end of the Torah, the last words are Asher Shibarta. Moshe Rabbeinu, Yad HaChazaka, the strong hand. God told Moshe Rabbeinu, Yasher Koyach Shibarta. You know, people go in shul and get on the lead. Yasher Koyach, right? Yasher Koyach comes from that word. God, the first time it was said Yasher Koyach, God told Moshe Rabbeinu, thank you for breaking the luchos. You did the right thing. The Jews are not worthy of it. They made the golden calf. Yasher Koyach Shibarta. Asher Shibarta. God gave him the go-ahead. Of course, it was done already, and that you did the right thing. You did not sin at all, because the Jewish people were not worthy of that time to get the luchos. They were too holy and too much dependent on it for them to be worthy of it. And that was a tragedy for the Jewish people, because the luchos, like I mentioned before very briefly, was an object coming min hashamayim, from heaven, that God's luchos, he came along with the luchos. There was godliness with those luchos. The Jewish people would have been much more spiritual and much more close to Hashem, to God, with those luchos. And it was a big punishment that they didn't have the luchos, because the luchos came with it very greatness and prosperity in physical aspect, mundane aspect, in ruchnias, and spiritual aspect. The Jewish people lost very much by the breaking of the luchos. It was a tremendous punishment for them. And the other, yes?
Rabbi, excuse my ignorance. You said today is a partial fast day, not your words, my words. And
Partial means we didn't start last night. We started this morning.
And 3 weeks from now, we have a full fast day. Get my
Right.
words.
Right.
Could you explain to us, or me specifically, what is the difference in the origin and why it's like that?
Yes, because the biggest tragedy was on Tisha B'Av. And 3 weeks from now, on the 9th day of Av, is when the tragedy really happened. That's when the Both temples were destroyed. Today was only the beginning. They broke into the city of Yerushalayim, the holy city. They broke down the wall, and they got into the city. But the main tragedy that happened 3 weeks from now, on the 9th day of Av, that's when the temple was actually burned and destroyed. And therefore, it's a much bigger tragedy. That's a much bigger tragedy for those what happened then than that happened today.
Again, the idea of the not full day or full day fast comes from, and I apologize again for my ignorance.
It comes from the fact that the tragedy was greater.
No, I mean, I understand that. The question I'm saying is, did the sages do this thousands of years ago? My friend just helped me out. Who established the fast days, and how did they come about? And being
Who established? They were established by the prophets. Prophets of the time. They made the Jewish people to accept upon themselves these fast days. The prophets of the time.
Thank you.
Rabbi Mintz,
The prophets with the Supreme Court together. They did it. The Supreme Court of the Jewish people at that time, they had a Supreme Court. So the prophets together with the Supreme Court, they were the ones who established these fast days. 71 sat in Jerusalem. 71 of these great rabbis, scholars, who were the last word. The whole Supreme Court today system was taken from the Jewish Supreme Court that they had in Jerusalem. They had courts in every city. The Supreme Court was in Jerusalem. Just like today, we have courts in every city, but Supreme Court is in Washington. The Washington was Jerusalem. That's when the Supreme. There they had 71. Here they only how many have 7, I think, sit on the Supreme Court. How many have sit on the Supreme Court? 7 people, 7 judges, 9. Then they had 71. But the whole idea of Supreme Court comes from the Jewish people, and it's called Lishkas Hagozis. It was called. Yes.
somebody wanted to know, you had mentioned that a Jew who's not circumcised is outside or something like that of the covenant with God. What does that mean?
The covenant means a bris, a treaty, a non-breakable agreement between God and the Jewish people. That's the bris. The bris was that God will be for us as a God, has special closeness to the Jewish people, and we have a special closeness to him as his nation. He'll never leave us, no matter what we do, how bad we are. He'll never leave us. He'll punish us and knock us sense to our head to bring us back, but he'll never leave us. And our part of the deal was we'll never leave him, no matter how much we're punished, no matter how much we go through, no how many pogroms and how many inquisitions and how many holocausts, we'll never leave him. That was the part of we took upon ourselves, we'll never leave him. He upon himself will never leave us. That was the covenant. A sign of the covenant is the bris that we call the bris is circumcision, the sign of the covenant. And this is something that we put in our body, make part of ourselves. It's not just a ritual, but we make our body different from the nations of the world by circumcising ourselves and showing that we accept upon ourselves God's rule in the most important part of our body, so to say. This is our nitzchias. This is the aver in the person, the part of the person that keeps the generations going. This is where children are born, to show that we take upon ourselves God's rule for ourselves and for future generations forever, and therefore the bris is in that place where the eternal life of human beings is, through the bris. So therefore we make ourselves different from the nations of the world, show that we're different now, we're different in the future, we're God's people now, and we're God's people in the future. That's why bris is done in such a way. I'm not saying the whole. We spoke about it then in great length when we learned the mitzvah of bris. We came to it before, but generally speaking, this is the idea. I hope the person is satisfied with the answer. I hope they heard it.
Any other questions in the room?
So what would a woman do to make a covenant with God?
A woman, we say, ishto kegufo. A man and a woman, a wife, are considered as one. And therefore, the man and the woman who's married, so she's considered like together with the husband. Adam and Eve were created together. They're separated later, but they're considered as one entity. And therefore, and the woman who doesn't get married is part of the Jewish people, and she's considered like part of the... God made this bris with the Jewish people as a whole, not only as an individual. We're all one nation. And therefore, if the bris is by the males, so everybody's included in that. God once made the bris with the Jewish people, as a whole nation.
And
therefore,
an unmarried woman?
and she's also part of this nation. She's part of the Jewish nation. The bris goes for everybody. They do they're called the ois bris. The covenant itself was made to everybody. That's
Covenant,
called
but-
the ois bris. It's called the sign of the bris.
Yeah.
That's not as important as the bris itself. The two countries make a covenant between themselves, make a bris. Will not fight each other. That's the bris. They go and they shake hands or they sign. That's only a sign of they made the covenant. But the main covenant is what we made up. God said, "I'm your God, no matter what. You're my people, no matter what." Jewish people say the same thing. That's men, women, and children. The sign of the bris is not that important. I mean, it's as important as the bris itself, as a covenant, I'm saying. So everybody's included in this, men, women, and children. Somebody will say that the two countries made a bris. So who signed it? The president and this cabinet. So everybody will say, well, how come me? I didn't sign it. But everybody has to sign it. He did it for everybody. So the main thing is we're not going to fight anymore. We have a good relationship between ourselves. The ones who signed it is not that important. The main, it was made. Everybody's included. The ones who, the sign of the bris is something that for the males, but the bris itself includes everybody. There's food in the back. People want to eat. I'm welcome to eat.
There's an online question. I asked them to clarify, but I haven't gotten the answer yet. What would have happened if Egypt let Israel go without a struggle? I assume they mean as far as all those mitzvahs that we do, Zeichel, Yitzias Mitzrayim, and everything that we do to thank Hashem for taking us out of Egypt. What would have happened had they just let us out?
I don't think it would be any different because we say they went out without a struggle. That means they were there for many years in bondage and had to serve the Egyptians. God would put into the minds of the Egyptians to let the Jewish people go. It wouldn't be on their own. God told them to let them go. So we still have to be thankful that we went out of Mitzrayim. So I don't think it would be any different. The main thing is we're not servants anymore, we're not slaves anymore. So He made us not slaves. The Levium didn't serve in Mitzrayim. And they also have all the mitzvahs of Mitzrayim. So you don't have to be forced labor. They came and went as they pleased, the Levium. And still they have all the laws of Mitzrayim. So I don't think it makes any difference. Any other comments, questions? Oh, yeah, we have. Is this first?
Rabbi, you say the Jewish people make bris. What about Esav? He also make bris. Ishmael.
Ishmael has a bris?
Yes.
Well,
What's
at
the
that
difference?
time, Ishmael, Avram Avinu, Abraham had to circumcise Ishmael because that's one of his children. Ishmael, are they commanded afterwards to do it? Most opinions say that they don't have the mitzvah bris Ishmael. They do it because they make the whole history change around. You know, they make everything that Ishmael is the main one, not Yitzchak. I mean, they falsify the whole Torah. The thing that was going for hundreds, thousands of years, Muhammad came along and made a whole different nusach, and the Torah changed everything around. The bris with Ishmael, not with Yitzchak, and they make a whole, if I drag the cup over there with the whole thing. So, but they, most opinions hold that there was Avraham Avinu had the mitzvah to circumcise all of his children, including Yishmael. But afterwards, there was no obligation for him to circumcise. There are some opinions that say that there was, but most say that there's no obligation to Yishmael to circumcise his children. It's only for Avraham and through Yitzchak, not through Yishmael. So, if Yitzchak, Yikor Lecho Zorah. God said, your children are called your children through Yitzchak. Yishmael is not considered your children. It's considered like he was pushed away. He's not the children of Avraham. So they're not commanded. They only have the 7 Noahide laws, like everybody else, but no special other laws they don't have.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Rabbi, on a different topic, I have a question. Is it
Yes.
particular tehillims that could be read in the assistance of a secular studies?
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Any particular tehillim
Tehillim?
that someone could read in order to assist the person in the secular studies?
They should get in college, I mean, or something like that. Want to get
Something
good
like
marks?
that,
You want
yes.
good marks?
I'll just say secular studies. Could be college, I would say, yeah.
Well, we say that Tehillim, anything you say in Tehillim helps for any type of problem a person has. So it don't have to be as a particular one. Any for secular studies, particular one I'm not aware of offhand, I have to give some consideration. But you don't really have to have any special. If somebody's sick, God forbid, anything in Tehillim that you say helps. Somebody is poor and he needs money. Anything in Tehillim you say helps. Person, whatever predicament the person finds himself, all of Tehillim is considered appropriate to say. So the same thing goes for this too. Anything you say, up the first chapter itself, Asher Ish, you say that will help for any problem a person might have, or any bakosh, any desire that he has, or any problem that he has, whatever, any part of Tehillim helps for that.
Thank you.
Right. We have in the back.
כבוד הרב,
Yes,
there is over here, it said like, וישכב איתה ויעניה.
yes.
When they went to Yaakov, Hamor and Shechem,
Yes.
Yaakov knew about?
Yes. Yes, of course.
Oh, he knew?
Yes. It said before, he heard
So-
about it, and he was quiet. He didn't say anything until the sons came. He didn't say anything. But he knew about it.
So that's why Shimon and Levi, they went to kill Shechem and Hamor and all those people over there in the city.
That's why?
That's the reason.
What's the reason?
When they find out that happened to the sister.
Yeah, but why kill them? Are they chayiv misa?
I mean, they need punish. I mean, they did something. They should to go before they, sleep with her and torture her.
Yeah,
He did what he
but-
did, and then after he went to ask her father her
Yeah.
hand.
Yes, so
It's
but
something,
are you supposed to kill them and kill the whole city? That's the question.
So,
So
but,
are they chayiv
yeah.
misa for doing that?
So that, who knows, that
Well,
time
who
was
knows?
just-
We got to know. That's
They,
why-
they do the same thing.
Yeah.
They got,
we have to explain. There has to be a reason. Just don't go killing people for something that they did wrong. There has to be something behind it why they killed them. Because they got angry and they got in a rage and they couldn't control themselves. Chas v'sholem. These are
Of
great
course
people.
was a reason. They didn't.
That's not a good enough reason. We have to find a good enough reason. For every little thing, kill somebody, kill the whole city. You have to have we have to find justice. What's the justice here? That's what we have to look into. We have to find why they're justified to do a thing like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Oh, over here. Over here, Rabbi. Take your time. What? No.
I just have a comment.
Yes, a comment.
To make with going back. Can't hear me? I'm sorry. Can you hear
Is
me?
it on?
It's on. It's known that many nations, including Israel, we had slaves, but they worked for 6 years, 7 years, and they were not only let go to freedom, but they were given property and clothing and all kinds of things. This slavery, in Mitzrayim, was very different. And when people enslave people like we were enslaved at that time, they don't want to give up. And they want to give up easy. So I don't think that there would have been, okay, you can go now. They really didn't want to. So
You were commenting on what the person said before on
yes, I'm thinking about that.
if they want to have to struggle to get out.
Yeah, it has. People would not let something go like that. And the reason I say that is if we look at our American history and the Civil War, it took a great many thousands of lives to set the slaves free in our country. And so
So you're saying
I'm saying that
it's not going to happen so
wasn't-
fast.
it
Mr.
doesn't
Mintz-
happen. It doesn't happen out of goodwill. I don't think it happens out of goodwill because
That's absolutely. I agree with you.
there was a tremendous battle.
Especially once you have slaves serving you, you get used to it. Like Paro said to Moshe, what are you talking? These people, they're doing so much work for me, and now they're thinking of leaving. They're not going to stop working. They built all the pyramids with the Sphinx, with all the things over there, and now you're going to take them away? Once you get used to it, you get the good life. You have all your slaves slaving for you, and everything's taken care of. You can't let them go so fast. Like in the South also,
And
they
that
had
was
all
the
the
same kind
people.
of-
Yeah, people working the fields, the tobacco, and everything in the South.
Right.
And now let the slaves go. Who's gonna do all the work?
The economy, their
Yeah,
economy collapsed.
right.
Yeah, so
That's right, part of the economy, right? I agree with you. Very, very, very truthful comment. That's any
Somebody wants to know the source of the comments, distinguishing between, he wants to be able to follow up on it, the source of the comments on the differences between the first and the second luchos.
source of the difference.
Yeah.
Well, the psukim themselves, the Torah itself is the source. Like we said, we read today and this morning and this afternoon, the special reading of the Torah on the fast day. God told Moses, carve out for you 2 luchos of stone. You bring the luchos. Before Moshe Rabbeinu came down with Shemayim, he brought down luchos from heaven. That's what it says over there in the psukim, the Torah itself. Here he told him, you carve out, bring the luchos up to me, to heaven, and I'll write on them the 10 Commandments. But the first luchos, the first tablets, were brought down with Shemayim. The stone came from heaven, and the writing. The second luchos, the stone came from earth. Moshe Rabbeinu put up to Shemayim. God wrote on it. The writing was God's writing, but the stone was earthly stone. The first stone was for heaven, was heavenly stone, different kind of stone, which really necessitates an explanation, which one day I hope to. But that definitely, the psukim themselves are the source for that difference, definitely. The food's good back there. It's good. Good job. Good. Everybody took already. Any other questions? Oh, here we have another question. Here we go.
What's the thinking? Where are they now? What is the thinking? Are they in Vatican? Are they hidden in the temple?
Oh, the luchas? The luchas were like this. The luchas, the second luchas were put into the ark. And the broken luchas were also put into the ark. Broken ones, pieces. And the ark was in the Holy of Holies, kept in the Holy Temple. And when the Babylonians were about to conquer the city of Jerusalem, they had a siege for 3 years, starting with the fast day of another fast day, with 10th day of Tevis. The 10th day of the month of Tevis is when the siege started. I didn't mention this before, but that's another fast day. That was the beginning of the end. The first beginning of the 3 years of the siege that started. And then finally, after 3 years, they broke into Yerushalayim. That's what we're fasting today. When that happened, the Kohanim, the priests, hid away buried it in the ground, and nobody knows where that's buried. So it's the Aaron, the ark, with the luchos, with the complete luchos, with the broken luchos, they're all hidden together in the Aron, someplace around the Beis Mikdash place, it seems, but nobody knows where they're buried. It was hidden until Mashiach comes, we won't know where they're buried. With the kruvim, with the whole thing, it was the beautiful Aron made out of gold and everything, but in the second Beis Mikdash they didn't have the Aron. Second Holy Temple, there was no Aron, there was no luchos, ark. The ark was not there. It was missing one of the great things missing. A few things are missing in the second temple, but that was one of them.
Came in. Another question just came in, but the impression I got is that you're not ready to go into this tonight. And that is, what does Rabbi Mintz hold was written on the first set? What else was written on the first set of luchos?
We were told that the old Torah Shabbal Peh was written there. So nice that it was written there. The whole Oorah was also written on the luchos. They were not as prominent as the Ten Commandments, but all the laws of the Torah were written on there also somehow. But the whole luchos was a miracle. You can see it from both sides. You can read it from both sides. It was a miracle. And the mitzvahs, all 613 mitzvahs were written on the luchos and in fine print or something like that. It wasn't as prominent, as bold as the Ten Commandments. But that was also written there. Okay, any other comments, questions? That's it for the night. Okay, everybody, so nice to see you. And hopefully next week, I'm sure you won't be able to sleep tonight because of the questions we have by Yaakov Avinu, what happened over there. But I hope you'll be able to sleep, at least by tomorrow night, you'll be able to sleep. Until next week, we'll answer all these difficulties. Have a very good night, everybody.